Hello everyone. I'm Prithvi. Let's just go through some previous year questions in NEET under the chapter called Kinematics. In this part, we will be covering both one dimension and two dimension. Few topics we'll be covering. The remaining topics will make it as part 2 of the video. So I just wanted to inform you about, before we go to the questions, let's just understand what topics are there in this chapter and what topics, if there are any, removed or not. Let's just confirm the total syllabus that is there in the kinematics chapter part. So you shall have average motion, average motion shall involve average speed equations, average velocity equations, and average acceleration equations. All these three are available in the syllabus. And then you'll be having constant accelerated motion, under which we will be having kinematic equations, and then you have variable accelerated motion, otherwise also called as instantaneous. We will see relevant equations in this case while we discuss the questions. And then you have graphs, you have relative motion, you have projectile motion. But under projectile motions, just make sure you don't have to work out inclined plane projectiles and all that. Just work out basic projectiles and then horizontal projectile motion. So if these things can be covered from this chapter, of course we can go for circular motion as well. And vectors. Vectors in this case, again, don't have to dive deep into the vectors part. We can just stick to some basics like cross product, dot product. And coming to the motion in two dimension is where you will have vectors. You can just stick to vector addition, vector subtraction, and resolving vectors, parallelogram law of vector addition. If those things you can verify, that will be enough for kinematics part. Cross product and dot product, you can do it for work energy power chapter and rotational mechanics chapter. Circular motion, and here projectile motion, relative motion, graphs, variable and or instantaneous motion, constant accelerated motion, and average motion. These are the usual topics that are covered in the kinematics chapter, which are also available for the syllabus in the NEET 2024. So in this session, we will see questions, previous year questions based on some of these topics in this part of the video. Let's go for it. So first topic we'll be going through is kinematic equations. So before we go for the questions, let's just analyze what are the equations that we require and when do we need to use this kinematic equations. Let's just understand that so that we can do the questions much more with ease. So the target of this session is not just to give you the solutions of the previous year questions, but it is also to give you the information on what is necessary for us to know before we solve certain questions and how can we identify that this question is based on a kinematic, especially kinematic equations. So there are three kinematic equations for us. We all have been knowing this from the very, like maybe from 9th standard onwards, we know these equations. One is V is equal to U plus AT. Next, V square minus U square is equal to 2AS, and then S is equal to UT plus half AT square. Major three equations. There is also one more equation, that is Sn is equal to U plus A by 2 into 2t minus 1, or you can write it as 2n minus 1. Or either you can delete over here and just write it as St is equal to U plus A by 2 into 2t minus 1. So I would advise you all, please make sure you write all these quantities in vector format. Here it is not necessary because in this case V square and U square we are squaring, or we are doing a dot product between the same vector, which will give the result as a magnitude square of the magnitude. Time is not a vector quantity. So remaining things, you always make sure you write it as a vector format, because when you use the same equations in 2 dimension, it will be easy for you to consider the sign convention into it. And coming to the last part and this part, the third equation and the fourth equation, the difference between them is, this one is the displacement in some duration of time. That means how much an object has traveled in 4 seconds, 6 seconds, 10 seconds, in when the time is mentioned over a span, then you can use the displacement equation over here. When it comes to the last one, how much is the displacement happened in a particular interval of time, especially in the adjacent intervals of time. That means in the first second, in the third second alone, that means the object moving from second to third second, or third second to fourth second. So in that case, or t is equal to 1 to t is equal to 2, that is first second, t is equal to 2 to t is equal to 3, that is second. So in a specific interval of time, in the adjacent specific intervals of time, how much is the displacement has happened, that will give this equation. So we can say in a particular time interval between t is equal to 1 and t is equal to n plus 1, between these two we can verify the displacement. Anyway, we will see the questions based on this. So these are the 4 equations we need to solve any questions based on kinematic equations. Now, last thing we need to understand is, how can you identify this question should be based on kinematic equations? The conditions for kinematic equations to be applied is, always acceleration of the object should be constant. Hence, the questions that comes under constant accelerated motion shall also be solved by using the same equations. So condition is, acceleration A must be constant. So numerically, if you see, how can you identify? For example, if A is given as 5 meter per second square, that's a constant acceleration. In vector format, if it is given like 2i cap plus 3j cap meter per second square, that's also a constant acceleration. So it can be given in magnitude format, it can be given in vector format. In either way, if the value of the acceleration is constant, we can consider that the questions can be solved using the kinematic equations. So let's go to some previous year questions based on this part. So let's do some questions based on kinematic equations. Previous slide we saw the necessary equations relevant for this. We will see some previous year questions based on this. So question says, distance traveled by a particle starting from rest and moving with an acceleration 4/3 meter per second square in the third second is. So they are first of all saying the acceleration is 4/3, which is a constant. So we can know that this question can be sorted out using the kinematic equations. And the distance they are asking, is it in the third second? Third second in the sense, it is not a overall duration, it is a particular second, which means we have to use the fourth equation, that is Sn is equal to u plus a/2 into 2n minus 1. So it started from rest, so initial velocity 0, acceleration is 4/3, there is a 2 over here, that will become 4/6, and third second, so n value will be 3, so 2 into 3, that will be 6 minus 1, so that should be 2/3 into 5 or 10/3 meters, which is option C. Okay, let's go for the next question. A particle moves in a straight line with a constant acceleration. It changes its velocity from 10 meter per second to 20 meter per second while passing through a distance 135 meters in t seconds. The value of t is. Now, this question is given with initial velocity u, final velocity v, initial velocity 10, final velocity 20, and it happened to finish this in some value of time by covering 135 meters of distance. Now it is a straight line motion, so distance, displacement both will be same. Now to take up this equation, if you are wondering whether the acceleration is constant or not, you can verify it from here. But otherwise, it is also mentioned over here, it is a constant acceleration. So which means again kinematic equations are involved. So we can use ut plus half at square equation. Rather, if you check your NCERT, the S is equal to ut plus half at square equation begins with a standard format u plus v by 2 into t. So I would recommend you to please go through NCERT once again to check this information regarding the kinematic equations. For the derivation of ut plus half at square, it will begin with this equation. So we can substitute everything, u value, v value, s value in here, and t value we can get. So this will be 135 into 2 divided by 30, that should be equal to t, which should give us the value of 135 by 15, and that should give the value of 9 seconds as the answer, option D. Right? So let's go for the next question to see if there are any more in this context. A particle starts its motion from rest under the action of constant force. If the distance covered in first 10 seconds is s1 and that covered in the first 20 seconds is s2, then they are asking us to find the relationships between these distances covered in first 10 seconds as well as first 20 seconds. Here they have not directly mentioned that the acceleration is constant, but they have mentioned constant force. And by now you should understand that if force is constant, by this equation mass of an object obviously will be constant. Therefore acceleration should be constant value, which means we can apply kinematic equations again. So let's understand. They are asking the distance, particle started from rest, initial velocity 0, we have constant acceleration, and then we need to find the relation between these two things. So we can use the s is equal to ut plus half at square. So u is 0, which means s is directly proportional to t square. So on following that, s2 by s1 is equal to t2 by t1 whole square. Now they have given t2 is 20 seconds, t1 is 10 seconds, so that should be 20 by 10 whole square, that should be 4, which means we can write s2 is equal to 4 times s1, where option C is the answer. So before we go for the next question, when you are solving the questions, here is a small tip to know whether the answer that you got is correct or wrong. Most of the questions, whatever, if your substitutions are correct, if your formula is correct, and the concept that you are thinking behind the solution is correct, your answer will perfectly match with one of these options. So there is no guesswork that you have to do. If you are getting any nearby values, just make sure that your concepts, applications, everything is correct. Otherwise, if you are getting a very far away value, please don't go for it, recheck your solution once again. If not, if everything is solved correctly, your answer will pitch perfectly match with one of these options. That itself is a hint that your answer is correct. Let's go for the next question. Body is moving with velocity 30 meter per second towards east. After 10 seconds, its velocity became 40 meter per second towards north. The average acceleration of the body is. Well, this question can be both dependent on average motion based question, or it can also come to constant acceleration, which means kinematic equations based question. So we can use the equation A is equal to V minus U by T. Why I wrote it in vector format is they have mentioned the directions as well. So whenever they mention east, north like that, always make sure that you remember it this way. East, you always take it along positive x-axis that has the unit vector direction I cap, and north naturally it will become positive y-axis which has a unit vector direction j cap. Always stick to this. So based on this, if you apply it in here, they said final velocity is 40 meter per second towards north. That means this is 40 j cap minus initial velocity is 30 towards east. So minus 30 I cap divided by 10 seconds. You shall get the value as minus 3 I cap plus 4 j cap. But we are not having the answers in terms of vector format, we are having it in terms of the magnitudes. So here you can recollect how to find the magnitude of a vector. So how do you find the magnitude of a vector? You will square each component and you will add the squared components and you put it under root, which means magnitude of this vector A is, or acceleration is, square root of 3 square, that is 9, plus 4 square, that is 16. So overall value, that will be 25 under root, which will be 5 meter per second square. So you can have the answer as option C. Okay, let's see another question. A boy standing at the top of a tower of 20-meter height drops a stone. Assuming g is equal to 10 meter per second square, velocity with which it hits the ground is. So this is the building or the tower from which the person or the boy is dropping it, and they said the height of the tower is 20 meters. And from here the stone is dropped, but so when we say dropped, what do you mean by that? So whenever you see the word drop or release, it means initial velocity is 0. So that means here initial velocity is 0, the ball experiences acceleration due to gravity, which is 10 meter per second square, and you need to know with what velocity will it hit the ground. So you have to find v, you have s, the displacement, g and u. So you can use the equation v square minus u square is equal to 2gs. Just make sure you write the sign convention also. So if you have to write the sign convention properly, then better you take everything going downwards as negative. That means 2 into minus g into minus s. So v square is what you need. Direct equation, if you can see, v will be equal to root 2gs. So 2 into 10 into the height is 20 meters. That will be 400, root 400, which will be 20 meter per second is the answer. So option A is the correct answer for us. Okay, we'll go for the next question. Ball is thrown vertically downwards with a velocity 20 meter per second from the top of the tower. It hits the ground after some time with a velocity 80 meter per second. The height of the tower is. Again, a kind of a tower based questions. So from the tower, the height which we don't know, it is now thrown. You can see here, it is not released, it is not dropped, it is thrown. So when we are throwing something down, we need to give it some velocity. So initial velocity is available 20 meter per second. The ball travels down with acceleration due to gravity 10 meter per second square. That is what they have asked us to take in the question. You need to find the velocity with which, it strikes the ground with some velocity, that is 80 meter per second, and you need to find the height. So you have final velocity, initial velocity, a value, you need to find h, or otherwise you can also take it as s. So v u a s, which equation? V square minus u square is equal to 2as. By the way, I forgot to tell you, all these equations, all these questions based on motion under gravity. That means when you're releasing something, it will fall down due to gravity. All these questions are also constant accelerated motion based questions only, because gravity is a constant value. Thereby, we can use the equation v square minus u square is equal to 2as. So here it will be v square, that is 80, so that is 64 into 10 to the power 2 minus u square, that is 4 into 10 to the power 2 divided by 2 into 10 should be equal to s. So if you cancel the terms, so this will be 60 into 10 divided by 2 is equal to s. So this will be 5 times. So total it will be 300 meters is equal to s. And you have option D as the answer for it. Okay, we'll go for the next question. Ratio of distances traveled by a freely falling body in the first, second, third and fourth second. You see this? These are the question, these are the values of the time that they are asking us to take, not for the whole duration but during the particular time interval. So which means we have to solve this question by using u plus a by 2 into 2n minus 1 based value. So in this case they are asking us distances traveled by the free falling body in these respective seconds. So for this we can directly get the value. We have Sn is equal to u plus a by 2 into 2n minus 1. Since we are finding the ratios and the body is just released, or the initial velocity will be the same, So u value and a value, u value can be 0 and a values can be cancelling in the ratios. So we can write Sn is directly proportional to 2n minus 1. So based on this, we can just write these respective ratios. S1 is to S2 is to S3 is to S4 is equal to first one 2n minus 1. N value is 1. So that will be 2 minus 1 2. Sorry, my mistake. 1 is to next. Put the n value as 2. That will be 4 minus 1 3. Next, put n value as 3. That will be 6 minus 1 5. Next, put n value as 4. That will be 8 minus 1 7. So the ratio is 1 is to 3 is to 5 is to 7. That is option B. So these are few questions based on kinematic equations. We will go for the next topic based questions in the next slide.